Well, hey everyone, welcome to Lead Culture. I'm Jenni, Catron, your host, and really glad that you are here again with us today. Always talking all things leadership and culture. And today I'm talking to my friend Kacie Frazier. Kacie is the senior manager of partners at Ministry Brands. Now, that company might be familiar to you because Ministry Brands was one of our sponsors for Culture Conference. So you got to hear from Kacie. She did an amazing talk at the conference about the right tools for the job. You guys have heard me talk about the hierarchy, the culture hierarchy of needs, and how employees need those basic needs, those basic tools for the job. And Kacie talked a lot when she shared about the tools, the right tools for the job, and thinking about how that applies in our work context, specifically in ministries and churches. What are the right tools to equip us to connect well with others? And we're going to dive into that today. Kacie is just a joy. Every time I've connected with her, I love just getting to know her heart for serving leaders, specifically ministry leaders. So Kacie, welcome. I'm really glad to have you on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This is going to be good. I'd love for you to give everybody just a little picture of your world. So I gave the title, I gave the context, but tell everybody a little more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Kacie Frazier. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I do have a heart for the church, I think because I come from it. My dad is a pastor. My grandfather was a pastor. My brother is a former pastor. My cousins, it just goes on and
family.
on.
Yeah.
The whole thing. So I just come from a very long line of ministers or church leaders. I was the worship leader for 15 years. Like there's no escaping it. So
yes, that's so good.
oh yeah. Yeah. The outtakes can include some song and dance, but
there we go. We'll
not
go
happening.
track down some some old clips somewhere. Yes.
No, they're out there, but I am not going to share them with you. But
fair enough.
It's just a big part of my personal story, my history. So understanding what it takes to be a minister, to support a church. And then my personal background is business and nonprofit operations. So being able to honestly marry my world as coming from a minister's family, but then also the operational side, which is kind of how my brain works.
Yeah.
Marrying those two together to, again, kind of provide tools so that ministers can just go be good pastors, be a shepherd, love your community, love your congregation, and let me and my crazy peers worry about how. Let you do the what and let us do the how.
That's so good. Well, and again, I just love that that's the framework and, kind of the foundation for you behind it is like you recognize, I think it's one of the big challenges and tensions that was new to me when I stepped into ministry. I was on church staff for about 12 years in an exec pastor role. And just recognizing you have all of the shepherding and the care responsibilities that are core to ministry, but then it's still an organization that has to be run. And the bigger it gets and the more complex it gets, the more all of that infrastructure grows. And typically ministry staff teams they haven't been trained with the business skills of sorts. And so I just love that you kind of see both sides of that from your history and experience, and then you bring that heart to the work you guys do. So tell us more about what you guys do at Ministry Brands.
Sure. I mean, we do everything.
This is part of your challenge, yeah. Right? Because
we do it all.
Yep.
This is part of my what makes my job super fun. But the short answer is we empower churches, ministries, and faith-based nonprofits through technology so they can fulfill their missions, which is, of course, serving their communities and ultimately growing the kingdom. So if we can provide the technology for you to fulfill your mission, that is our mission. Then my personal mission is a little bit broader than that, is over partnerships. So building relationships with adjacent companies and partners. Hey, we don't do that, but we've got a trusted partner who does. So my goal is to understand the entire ecosystem of what a church leader would need, and then be able to have a recommendation to every single possible part of that circle, again, so that you can just go do good work in your community, fulfill your mission. And you could say, hey, Kacie, I need this. And you go, hey, I don't do that, but I know who does.
Right.
They're good people. They're going to take care of you. They understand you. So again, like just building that entire ecosystem so you can just fulfill your mission.
Love that so
Sounds
much.
so simple.
Sounds simple, and then yeah, but
That's
that's part of what you bring, is that
Yeah.
resource that can help find the, can connect you to the tool that's needed to
Exactly.
so whatever that organization or ministry is in need of.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as you're connecting with, again, you guys are working with ministry leaders around the country? What are some of the challenges you're hearing right now? Technology in particular is one of those things that's constantly shifting and changing, and that can be overwhelming for any leader, but particularly in the church, where again, you're trying to be people-centric, and then you've got all this technology stuff that you're doing your best to keep up with. What are some of the big challenges that leaders are facing right now from your seat?
Gosh, well, you almost answered the question in the question, which is the speed at which technology and culture changes, right?
Yeah.
So again, there are always exceptions of outstanding ministry leaders who have either been blessed with big staffs or skilled people that have these extremely detailed skill sets. But you also have church staffs who are very small, a one-stop shop, and they're trying so hard to meet the needs of their community and their congregation. But just like anything, not just a church, but any company, any employer who's trying to engage, that word engagement, right? Like it just keeps coming up.
Yes.
How do I engage my fill in the blank, my employees, my families, my peers, my congregation, my community? How do I engage them? Gosh, well, what does that mean? And that's a broad, how do you define engagement? And right now, everybody is so disconnected. The pandemic did a great job of disconnecting us. So how do we reconnect you in a new way? So I think part of my team embraces, of course, technology, because that's what we literally do. Absolutely, let's reconnect you, but let's think about that differently. Connectivity might mean through a screen. Of course, we want it to be in person. That's a huge part of who we are. We are social creatures. I don't personally believe that God designed us to live on islands, but to have fellowship.
Right.
But in a modern age, fellowship might look a lot different. So how can we help leverage the tools that exist as they change really, really rapidly? And that you can, again, like come back to us and say, I do not know what I'm doing. We go, we do, we've got you. That's our job, so that we can help you do your job, which is connect your congregation, your community, and marrying all that together. It's complicated. I had this conversation yesterday. I was thinking about 10 people kind of in my immediate circle and how I just communicate with them. I was thinking about like my preteen daughter to my mother to friends, and I could name about 6 different tools. So everything from like text messages and even that, some is text, some is strictly just memes.
Yes.
It's just pictures and jokes, and that's like an entire language. Another is, Snapchat. I'm like, I kind of missed the Snapchat boat, so I'm not great at it.
Right.
And I'm thinking, man, there are all these people that I connect with on a daily basis, and I even use like a dozen different methods of communication. That's overwhelming for me, someone who is comfortable with technology. How much harder is it as a ministry leader or a business leader? How do I connect with an entire congregation, potentially thousands of people across different platforms, different systems? That's stressful, man.
Yeah.
A lot.
It is. I mean, I was thinking just earlier today, I happened to open my LinkedIn profile, and I had like all of these like messages of people I actually needed to respond to. And I'm like, oh man, I forgot about that over there. Another mechanism, of course, I've got unanswered text messages, that I need to get to. And like you have all of these different places where you're trying to create connection. And I think so many tools that can be useful in fostering connection, and then they can also be overwhelming. What are some?
Then it's how do I keep up? How do I keep? I don't. I fail every day.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we all feel the overwhelm of that, of like, oh my goodness, how do we do this? And then as organizational leaders, figuring out how do we utilize those tools in order to keep some of those connections, because we can't rely on, for the church leader, we can't rely on everybody showing up every Sunday like we used to. It's just not a reality. They're not coming that frequently, but they still may be connected via some of these other tools. So tell us some of the things you're seeing, how technology is fostering connection in church and leadership spaces. Like, what are some of the positives that you're seeing in this?
It's not all overwhelming.
We'll get into our overwhelm personally and then forget, like, wait, there's actually, there are some positives. There are some opportunities in this.
That is what we do. So yes, let's acknowledge the chaos and then go, but wait, we have good things for you. So you're kind of exactly right. And I love what you said. People aren't necessarily there in person, but they are still there. So connecting people in a different way, possibly through screens or groups, using technology as a tool, leveraging that rather than trying to, fight against it. So there are good things. Of course, we provide a lot of them through mobile apps. CHMS is a really big one that seems kind of like a no-brainer in the church world. But for those that don't know, CHMS is just like a CRM in the business world, but a church management system. And the cool thing is it's really simple. So I'm going to overly simplify the whole thing about engaging, connecting, and organizing. And the first two are really about I'm going to say congregation, but this could be community, or for a nonprofit, your donors. You are engaging and connecting with them. And then step 3 is you're organizing for your team. Who's organizing this? So I think about myself, like I'm a working single parent. I've got 2 kiddos. When I step foot into my church, is my church engaging me? And of course they are, because they have good systems in place. So how? Like, literally break that down. They're engaging with me when I check in on either my mobile app. I've checked my kids into their classrooms. So something triggered in a back-end software system. Hey, Kacie Frazier stepped into the building, or she logged into online service, or she gave her tithe and offering. She attended the virtual women's Bible study, whatever that was. I engaged. So there's a record of me as a human being who took an action. Then through that software, you can connect me to something, put me as a real human being into a group, into a workflow, set these automated tasks. Hey, her birthday was last week. Send her a card or just a text message. And by the way, that text message can be automated.
Right.
You can really, really simplify this. So I don't want people to think, oh my gosh, I don't have a staff to do that. You don't need one. It's all in these beautiful tools. Doing all these connection points where I personally don't slip through the cracks along my spiritual journey. Then on the very last part is organization. All of that data is in this beautiful organized software, making your staff really efficient, saving you honestly time and money, which is a really big deal because staffs are hard to come by.
I love that you bring awareness to that, because I think sometimes there's a little reluctance, especially in very relational driven types of organizations. So churches, of course, nonprofits, and even some small businesses, like highly relational. So the idea of a system, of a people management system, can feel like, oh, we're taking the relational connection out of it. When in fact, like the way we look at it internally at Foresight is the conversation we have as a staff team is we need to be intentional to keep all of the information about the leaders we serve in our CRM, so that when I pull up Kacie Frazier's profile in our CRM, I see that we had the podcast scheduled. I see that you watched Culture Conference. I see that, which sounds a little creepy, but it actually equips me to know how to serve you. I mean, I think that's the power of it. I think sometimes people get a little afraid of, oh, we have all this data. Well, the reality is we live in a culture where everybody has all of our data. They're watching.
It's here.
It's here. They're watching our movement, and I would much rather my church leader or the nonprofit that I'm really passionate about being a part of is following my engagement. So then it's a stewardship issue on their part, because then they're going, I'm not throwing you or marketing to you a bunch of stuff that you don't care about. you want to go to the women's Bible study. Well, let me make sure I'm giving you more information about that or other resources like it, but I'm not sending you, information about some other event that isn't applicable to you. Right. So it helps us be more aware and conscientious of how do I not just throw a ton of things at you, but I actually connect you with the things that would be most meaningful to you. Is that, am I
100%.
unpacking it right?
Yes. I love, you used one of my favorite words, which is stewardship. We think of that as finances. And of course, stewardship aligns with that, of course. But, in my world, I call that generosity. Stewardship, I can steward a relationship. I can steward a person. And I do that through information. So I love exactly where you're kind of taking that of challenging, oh, that's going to make me less relational. But maybe if you have a congregation or a donor base of 5 people and you can remember everyone's birthday and you can see their face, but hopefully you are growing and thriving and you reach a point where you cannot remember every name or every birthday or every touch point. So rather than me becoming less visible to you, you're leveraging these tools so that you can actually be more relational with me. How great is it you log into your computer each day and here's just these group of people, it's automated tasks. Hey, did you know it's Jenni's birthday? Did you know that her husband is in the hospital because he whatever? Like,
right.
If I don't know those things, I don't know to be relational with you. So it's just leveraging technology as a reminder so I can be more relational, not less. So I would challenge that argument big time.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. And I think it's a perspective shift, right? It's like, we're just having to think about it a little differently. And then for those of us who are old enough, I'll say those of me, because I don't want to lump you into this.
Oh, no, you go for it.
Old enough to remember not having the technological tools the way we have them today. You do sometimes feel yourself in this tension between, the like human to human interaction and connection and like having more tools that automate and create more opportunities for. We've used that word connection a lot, and I'd love for you to kind of expand on it because I don't think anybody's going to argue with it necessarily, but I would love to hear your perspective on why you think that connection piece is so critical, probably especially in the environment we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think more, and I can only use myself as just it's just a personal example of I work from home. I did before COVID. I've been a remote employee. I went through a really big life change where I was kind of removed from my my church home, my social circle. I do have a daughter that is a little bit more high needs from me. So I'm kind of isolated. There's a lot of just normal life things that can create isolation before I even recognize it.
Sure.
And then before you recognize it, or it's almost too late when you go, oh my goodness, I need people. I need a tribe, but just life has isolated you. And because we are work remote, because we're through screens, because it's easier to disconnect, it's harder to reconnect.
That's right.
Until it's too late.
Yes.
So, and I am not great at asking for help. I am independent. I feel like such a burden to other people. So I don't often reach out and ask until it is critical. Like, I am drowning. Come save me. That's too late. So as church leaders, as ministry leaders, as business leaders, can we proactively protect ourselves from this very just modern way of where just life is organically disconnecting us more and more. So it's like, I think we just have to very intentionally fight against that, even ourselves. I might be independent, but that's dangerous. And I need to protect against that. So going out of my way to make sure I stay connected as a manager, make sure that I'm going out of my way to connect my teams, connect my leaders in ways that just almost feel unnatural now. They weren't unnatural that long ago.
Right.
So
yeah. No, I love that you bring perspective, and thanks for your personal, just kind of perspective on that, because I think that we see this a lot in the staff culture work that we do, because, the pandemic pushed us all to work from home. And I, like you, worked from home pre-pandemic anyway, and had to wrestle with I'm one person in the same office every
Yeah.
day, and you start to recognize, oh, I've got to create new opportunities to connect and
Yeah.
be with other people, because even though I'm on screens, there's still it's still a different dynamic.
Mhm.
So anyway, but what we've seen in the pandemic is that it pushed everybody home, and everybody liked being at home. It was like, oh, wow. And there are some really wonderful things about that, of like, we don't have the commute time. We have a little more flexibility to juggle family and work stuff. And I think all of that's really
Mhm.
powerful. But what we lost, and where I've seen this breakdown in staff teams, is the lack of proximity resulted in lack of relationship and connection, which resulted
Yes.
in lack of trust. And therefore, we're
Mm.
starting to see erosion in team dynamics. And,
Yeah.
so now leaders and employers are going, okay, we've got to, like, we're recognizing that gap that got created relationally within our teams.
Mhm.
And now, and, some of, obviously some teams did this better than others, but like now
Mhm.
there's a fight to figure out, okay, how do we create appropriate, healthy relational and connection that helps foster that and help everybody see the need of it. I was thinking as you were talking, I was on a business networking call earlier today, and it's a new group that I got connected to. And it's people who help you connect with other business leaders in, similar spaces. And these guys and gals were so intentional. So it's all Zoom. They were so intentional of the connection we were making on the camera while we were on this call for an hour. I was blown away. I made more connections
Mhm.
and scheduled more follow-up conversations in that 1 hour on Zoom than I have in an in-person conference where I was networking with
Mhm.
somebody. And it was
Mhm.
their intentionality with it. So this was what made me be a believer of, and this is why I think, like, the work you guys do with the technology tools, I think sometimes leaders, especially in the church, have a tendency to separate connection and technology
Mhm.
and think that they don't go together or shouldn't go together. And I mean, I just had an example earlier today with this business group that I was like, oh my goodness, they were so intentional with using the technology to create connections that I was just shocking to me. And so I think
Mhm.
sometimes we think that they don't go together. And I'd love to hear your perspective on that and how you guys are coaching people to think differently about technology and the power of it with connection.
Yeah, no, you're just hitting it so home about the breakdown of trust, in those personal
Mhm.
relationships. So stepping foot into a church or supporting a charity, a nonprofit, honestly, it's not any different. So people come into, I'm going to use church for the example. You step into a church and man, you have no idea what the week or year before that person stepped foot into that building or
Mhm.
onto that, what it might be a virtual campus, whatever. I'm going to say in the church, virtually or physically, you don't know what their day was or week or year before they got there. Most people are hurting in some way or another, even if they have got their hair and makeup on, like they're struggling with something. So they are still a human being who is designed by God to need human connection. They need people, they need trust.
Mhm.
But because we have all these external factors that have broken down our trust, a a lot of us step into those environments that should be our safe place with our defenses just sky high, right? Like I
Yes,
step in there
yes.
almost waiting to be hurt again,
Mhm.
right? Like for no good
Yeah.
reason. Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
just, but if we can step into those environments that should be safe and build relationships and then using those backend systems to again like gather that data, then how great is it for those church staff members or those business, whoever it is that you're reaching out to, these people who came to you. And a
Mhm.
lot of time for a lot of people that takes courage, that takes vulnerability, to step in as a grown adult to a brand new place, like, I'm new here and I don't know where to begin. That's difficult.
That's
So then
right.
to reach out to that person and say, hey, we saw you. We
Mhm.
recognize that you came today. Can we connect you to other people? Can we find out what you're interested in so we can plug you in? One of my favorite pastors, I will never forget this, and it's so basic, said everybody needs to be needed and known. It's
Yeah.
really simple.
Yep.
So if you remember that I showed up today, whether it was my first or 1000th time, someone saw that I stepped foot in virtually or physically, and they said, "Hey, we saw you. You have a place here, and we need you. Hey, you've got these skill sets, you've got these passions. We've got a hole for you to fill that only you can uniquely fill. You just met my two needs. I'm needed and known. I'm probably coming back."
Right. Right. Yeah. That's really good. Kacie, one of the other things you talk about, you said right at the beginning, you talked about engaging, connecting, and organizing, and so that organizing piece of it, can you share why that's a key component to fulfilling a church or a organization's mission? Like where does that organizing piece come in? Yeah.
Of course. So stepping on the total opposite side is, okay, now I work at the church, I work at the nonprofit, and I've got all this data and all these people. Some of them are total strangers, some of them are brand new. And kind of like we talked about earlier, I've got my text, my email, my LinkedIn, my this. And I go, I don't know what to do. So on the back end, if I can help church leaders or ministry leaders organize all that data and make it really, really clean. I was on a call earlier today where I had kind of the opposite experience of yours. I was coaching a ministry, and on their own website, it was just almost like the yellow pages. Oh gosh, I just aged myself.
Right.
Oh no. Oops. But it was like the yellow pages of all these different, and I think my eye is now trained to see this, but I saw, okay, that's a different system. That's a different system. Oh my goodness. So on the back, my brain went to the back end of who on that staff has 3,700 logins and passwords. And then this has to reconcile to this. And like, it hurt my soul just looking at the front end, looking at the front end of the website, imagining how do you manage that on the back end? No, thank you.
Wow.
So I wanted to do two things. I wanted to go in and just like fix it. And then I also wanted to like reach out to whoever that staff person was, like, it's okay, I see you. So you just can't manage that many systems. It doesn't have to be that complicated. But it happens all the time. Your youth pastor says, oh, we need this, and then signs up for this system, and your secretary adds this. And before you know it, your tech stack is just way, way, way too big. You're overspending. You're super disorganized. And then you reach a point where somebody goes, I can't do this anymore.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I was going to say, even in thinking of how, so we talk so much about leadership and culture and the impact on staff dynamics. And this is one of those things that I think sometimes for senior leaders is out of sight, out of mind. That website in the leader's mind is probably working, and they're not fully aware all of the things going on behind the scenes to get it to all connect and talk to each other, and all the little hamster wheels that are having to be kept going in order for it to actually work. And even then it's probably not always working. And there's some staff person who's being exhausted, or probably multiple staff people that are being exhausted by these systems that aren't talking or integrating and creating just mass confusion. Not to mention the congregation member who's getting, messages from 10 different systems because none of the systems are talking to each other. And they're going, why am I getting a message about this when I just got one 2 minutes ago? Or,
correct.
So we're creating chaos for them, but we're also creating chaos for the team. And I think that's really important stuff. It's funny because those are the things we don't think impact culture. And they totally do. Both the culture of what our congregation is experiencing, and then the culture of what our staff team is having to deal with. And I think those are just such key things for leaders to recognize, that the behind the scenes things. It's like why you keyed in so much on the tools for the job when you were talking at the right tools for the job when you were talking at Culture Conference, because it's like those foundational things are so critical to the health and success of an organization. So I love your heart and passion behind that.
Especially as you grow, right? It just gets big, it snowballs. So can we kind of get it right from the beginning give you the tools for today so that 5 years from now, you're not wanting to pull your hair out and that secretary is not job hunting behind your back because you just think everything's fine. Like, no, she's quitting. Like,
Yeah.
she's about to leave you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Kacie, this is so good. And I'm grateful for the work that you guys do in helping streamline the systems and the technology that helps ministry leaders focus on, their greatest priorities. How can our listeners connect more with you? What's the best way to take a next step if they want to learn more?
Such a great question. Well, we do a lot of different things. So the easiest way is probably ministrybrands.com. And there is a handy little button that shows all the different services that we provide. We really break it down into three big buckets is generosity. So we do digital giving, things like that, people and protection. So that back end church management system, and protection is a really big one. That is a whole different podcast, but background checks and security of your staff and volunteers. Again, I want to even start on that one.
Yes.
And engagement. So our websites, live streaming, mobile apps, those are kind of the three big buckets, generosity, people, and engagement. But that'll do that. You can also, if you don't know where else to go, email me at partners@ministrybrands.com and I will get you to the right person, because I will probably not be the right person, but I will connect you.
That's so good. Awesome. Kacie, thank you. I'm super grateful for your partnership with us, particularly with Foresight and Culture Conference. And then just thank you for the way you guys are serving leaders in the church. You're making all of us better. So thank you.
No, thank you for including us. It's a pleasure.